6. Why is tea so good? People of the world, hello and welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language, episode 189. There's a number of people out there, people listening right now. Yes, you, entrepreneur, that's thinking about going for it, thinking about taking the leap. There's a lot of people with certain personality types that feel as though, maybe now is not my time. And it takes moments like looking at the leadership of another organization or another startup working for someone else and realizing that those people, God bless them, are incompetent, or they don't know what they're doing, or there's a million other things that I would rather do than work for this particular person. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Sometimes when you're out there working for someone, they are doing a bad job. I'm not saying your boss is bad. Everyone's human. Let's forgive everyone. Okay. Forgiveness flowing out. However, in chess, there are players that are better than other players. What they are doing is making better moves than the other players, which is to say that if you believe that you can do a better job, then just go do it. Our guest today, Christina Inge, has a ton of experience in marketing, and she found herself in this sort of situation where she was looking at her life, where she's at, and she thought to herself, you know what, I can do better. This was around 2014. She was at this ridiculous conference where someone literally told her that paleo was Satan's diet, and she thought to herself, what is happening to me right now? I am not perhaps where I should be. I can do better. And she did precisely that. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, the incredible Christina Inge.
Thanks for that great introduction, Kellen, and thanks for having me on the show. Yes, so I was just telling you before we went on the air, I strongly believe that sometimes we wait too long to take control of our lives. And that was definitely my experience.
There you have it. So again, if you are an entrepreneur and you've already gone through this journey, it resonates with you. That's cool. That's fine. If you are thinking about doing it, everyone's individual journey is exactly that. So I'm not going to sit here and judge where you're at and whether or not you should or shouldn't. I have no idea. I'd have to talk to you for hours and hours and hours to even have an idea. But what I can say for sure is that Christina made the jump. It appears to me at the right time, because when she went for it, the phone started ringing almost immediately, and people said to her, what have you been waiting for? We've been waiting for this moment.
Yep, and that's a sign that you've waited too long. Is if that starts to happen. I would talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who have a long time getting product market fit or service market fit, and they're wondering why the needle is not moving. It doesn't mean that you were premature in making the jump, but if you hit the ground running, it means you could have hit the ground and gone further had you started earlier. So yeah, I can tell you a little bit more about my story. So in 2014, I had been thinking about starting my own marketing agency for a while. I had come up in digital marketing before there even was a term digital marketing, and had served on the board of the American Marketing Association Boston chapter as their first chair of social media, had organized really successful events, and had thought long and hard that I could be making more money and having a more satisfying career if I went out on my own. I'd be able to do things in the way that I felt was best practices. Companies at that time did not really understand digital marketing. They thought if you posted something to Twitter and you had 5 followers, that you were going to be a millionaire from that post a week later. So there were a lot of mistaken beliefs about what digital marketing is and what it does, which have changed over the last 7 years. However, at the time, working in-house, even at startups in digital marketing, meant a lot of educating folks that, if you've got 5 followers on Twitter, posting a single tweet isn't going to get you 1 million customers. Sending out an email to 500 people with your product launch isn't going to get all of them to sign up and pay and open their wallets by the end of the day. People thought digital marketing at the time, because it was relatively new, was magic. Around 2007 was when I went into full-time, full service marketing versus being a copywriter and a web developer. And I had a lot of roles as a contractor before. So I actually had freelance right out of college for a couple of years. I was a freelance content developer and a freelance web developer. And then I went in-house, first at a publishing company, then at one startup, then another startup after that. Didn't have a lot of in-house jobs. Stayed for a long time, thought I would be able to get the digital marketing ball rolling. Had some really good wins, got clients to the first page of Google when I was freelancing, got my employer to the first page of Google when I was working in-house. But it was really just not the time to be a digital marketing person in-house and get the traction that you could, because people had these, what I call the magical beliefs. That said, I found myself working for a startup where there was a real challenge in getting product market fit, but it was really hard, and completely understandably so, to get the founders to let go of that initial vision and pivot in the direction that end users were telling us it needed to be pivoted in. And at the time, I was starting to read works like Steve Blank's work around how you find product market fit in a startup or in new product development, and his customer discovery framework, and starting to learn more about how you're really supposed to run a startup. And obviously also thinking about, this is how digital marketing is not magic. It's just another marketing channel. Certainly it's got its ways of being different, like different media, but it's still marketing. You still have to have a good product, and you still need to build that trust with your audience. The company started to really lose funding, burn through its funding. They finally did pivot in a direction that I had mapped out using voice of the customer data, but they were running out of runway faster than they were pivoting. So it looked like it was going to, if something didn't happen quickly, probably run out of funding. So as I was telling you, I spent what I call the lost weekend at a conference in a small industrial city at a rundown conference center, promoting the product, giving a talk. Got a lot of interest in the new version of the product, getting cornered by that lady who out of the blue told me that paleo is Satan's diet, which by the way could be a great marketing angle if you're trying to sell it to metalheads. And I come back on Monday morning. It's a completely normal Monday morning. I introduce my founders to an industry contact that they were really interested in meeting. They thanked me for introducing me to that person. I go to lunch, I come back, they're laying most of the staff off in the middle of a Monday and then asking me to come back and work for free. And my answer was no, and I found myself walking out the door in the middle of a sunny, cold April morning in Boston with my intern, who said she wasn't going to stay and do all of my job and be an intern for little to no pay, minimum wage. And she said this was the third time I get onboarded as an intern, and then they let go of the full-time employee who's doing the job that they then want me to do, and I'm not going through this again. So we part ways very happily. By the way, we're still Facebook friends. And I find myself walking down the Longfellow Bridge in Boston, and I call a friend who's an attorney with whom I had served on entrepreneurial organizations boards, ironically, thinking about becoming my own boss, thinking about becoming an entrepreneur myself. I said, I need you to file articles of incorporation for me. I'm starting my own agency. And he said, when did you come to this decision? I said, well, I got let go from my job. We all got laid off. And he said, when did that happen? I said, about an hour ago. And he said, sleep on it. Come back to me next Monday with a business plan, and then we'll talk about it. You need to give this at least some time. I get to the bottom of the Longfellow Bridge. I hook a right. I'm walking down the street. It's the middle of a Monday in Kendall Square here in Cambridge, Mass. So everybody's in their offices, and suddenly a colleague of mine, who I've known for many years, miles away from his office, is coming out of a meeting, coming out of a building, and he says to me, "What's going on?" I tell him the story. I tell him I'm starting my own agency. He says, "That's great. I was wondering when you were going to do it." He was the second person now today was saying to me, "What took you so long?" My friend on the phone had said the same thing. And he said, "I'll be your first client." Next day, I post to social media that I'm starting my own agency. I did not listen to my friend who said to give it a week. And the phone started to ring. It was somebody I spoke with on a panel months before who wanted to work with me as well. That led to my first client, my first gig. 7 years later, here I am, still in business. Moral of the story, don't wait so long.
Well, there you go. So what are you doing for these folks? Are you blogging, Google ads, Facebook ads, web development?
A little of everything. So mostly, though, what we think of ourselves as is we make technology friendly. That's our motto. Examples of that are, let's say you've been going for a while, scaling your business, you're doing e-commerce, and you've got an e-commerce system, maybe like a Squarespace site that's working well for you, but now you need to grow, you need to integrate a CRM system. There are web development shops, there are SEO shops, there are vendors who make CRM systems and e-commerce systems and what have you. What you don't often see is somebody who can make your tech stack, your marketing tech stack work for you. I work with a lot of web developers, web designers who are brilliant, but they have no idea how to integrate HubSpot or Salesforce to make it work within your system. They don't know how to do SEO. The number of times clients come to me and say, "We have this great website, but it's not ranking on Google." Our web development firm said that they had done SEO, and I go in there and there's virtually no on-page SEO, and SEO is not really an on-page game, hasn't been for 10 years anyway. It's just, okay, they put title tags there and they thought that's SEO. That's not what you hire a designer for, but a lot of businesses think I'm going to hire somebody to design a pretty website for me, and therefore it's going to be a functional website. And then they learn too late that that's not the case, because getting all those systems to work together to drive traffic, to convert visitors, and to have a smooth back-end operation, that's actually a whole other function. That's our sweet spot, is you need someone to make your systems work for you. We're also, for full service, we've done branding for Brandeis University's Innovation Center. We rebranded the whole center and all of their programs. We'll do even print production, honestly, has been something people have been asking us for. Chiefly, however, we focus on content-driven marketing, other than the systems integration part that I just spoke to. So blogging, SEO, which is strictly about content, social media, email marketing, still a really critical part of what we do, and virtual event production, which we've been doing way before everything went virtual.
Oh, virtual event production. That's interesting. So, okay, now that we know what you do, and some of the things that are later in life, let's dive into what got you to this point, which is to say, where were you born?
I was born just outside Boston, Massachusetts. I am a proud resident of Massachusetts.
Massachusetts?
Yes.
Which is a combination of what words?
I'm a very proud masshole. I will cut you off in traffic. No, I won't really. I will wear shorts in the middle of winter. I have my iced coffee at all times. Yeah, I am fully what you expect out of someone from Massachusetts, except that I can pronounce the letter R.
Interesting. Okay, so both parents in the house growing up?
No, my parents were divorced when I was young. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. And my grandmother was very old school. So I am actually like, I also, my mother was a bit of a hippie. So I was unschooled from the age of 8, which is this very unstructured form of homeschooling. So I was, yes, hi Todd, hey Red Sox. I was this little hippie prairie child. I could cook and clean like nothing by the time I was 10 years old. So if the zombie apocalypse comes, you want me on your team.
So raised by your mom and grandma. Where did dad run off to?
Where did the well, he remarried. My father was actually a law professor, and he remarried. He actually was an intellectual property a law professor, and so that helped me understand. My grandmother, who raised me, had a background, a degree in accounting, and her dad had been a banker. So little bits and pieces of how you run a business, like how do you protect your copyrights, how do you protect your intellectual property, how do you do basic bookkeeping, or at least keep your eye on your cash flows, that kind of stuff I understood through like weird advice I got from adults growing up. I mean, most kids growing up, you don't get advice like make sure that you file copyrights on everything you write, or make sure you have sufficient cash flow. So, but those are things I learned growing up. So I kind of went through this cycle of growing up, coming from a background where I thought I had a lot of practical skills and knew a lot about business, to then entering the business world and seeing so much jargon and so much fluff being thrown around, that common sense that I learned growing up felt like, okay, that's not enough, because I don't throw around terms like leveraging the ROI of the synergies. And I think I let that undercut my belief that, I know this, I've got this, I know that. And so a lot of what I've done as an adult, going back, starting my own business, is honestly going back to stuff I learned as a child about, act with integrity, protect your legal rights and your own interests, make sure you have positive cash flow, don't take on a lot of debt, treat your employees right. All of that is actually stuff I learned by the time I was 12, and that's really all you need to know. And I did not realize that till I started doing my own, doing my own thing and running my own business. I thought you needed to have a fancy MBA and speak this whole other language.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I refer to this show as, well, why I titled it Marketing as a Foreign Language, because I feel like learning someone's life story is like learning a foreign language. You're picking up all this new vocabulary and you're forming sentences that you've never said before. Good example would be your father was a law professor,
Mm-hmm.
and he divorced your mom at a certain age. Was he in the ballpark of the same area? Did he stick around the Boston,
Actually,
like the Massachusetts area, or what? How did that go?
my mother divorced my father.
Right.
So,
Sorry. Just whatever. Yeah.
So no, he worked in Washington D.C. He was an attorney in a law firm in Washington D.C. So, and then I went to the University of Maryland, so I got to see a little bit of how the D.C. area operates, and that was
Right.
eye-opening.
So it sounds like genetically you have an advantage. Sounds like you come from a very intelligent family, high IQs, that sort of thing. I mean, law professor, right? I mean, that'll tell you a couple things. And then have you ever heard the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Oh gosh, yeah. So that's something that I I co-teach with somebody who loves to talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect of the less you know, the less you realize you don't know something.
The less you know, the less you realize you don't know. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's a stupid confidence basically,
Yeah.
like ignorant confidence, like, nah, I'll do great, And then, so there's a lot of that in entrepreneurship. You'll find people at the highest levels, sometimes successful, sometimes not, that are just incredibly confident, and and folks like yourself that are very intelligent. You've done the work, you understand it, it's the whole 9 yards. You may not feel that same level of confidence because you have such a breadth of knowledge, and you know what you don't know because you actually know some things. You circle back and you go, maybe not. And we, as folks that have expertise, at least in certain subject areas, we tend to project that expertise on others and go, well, yeah, of course everyone knows like basics of SEO. No, they don't. They do not. They absolutely do not. They don't have a clue. They're very confused, and the less people tend to know, the more confident they tend to be. Is a general interpretation, at least my interpretation of the Dunning-Kruger effect. So, I mentioned that simply because you mentioned getting to the game too late, because you weren't quite sure. Maybe it was a confidence thing, or taking the leap is scary, whatever. But that actually, to me, is a testament of your ability being strong.
And I think that's the lesson that I want to impart to other folks. I was mentoring a young lady just last night. Her parents and I are friends from way back, and her dad reached out and said, could you talk to my daughter? She's looking for some career direction. And immediately I saw this is a young person with really special talents. And it was the same thing, because the more you know, the more you see what you don't know. And you know that there are unknown unknowns out there. The more you are hesitant. And I said, what's the worst thing that can happen if you apply for that job you have 60% of the qualifications for? They'll say no.
Right.
Or you'll get the job. As long as you're honest and you say, I know how to do X and I don't know how to do Y.
Yep.
If they hire you, that means they're willing to invest in you. And I see that a lot with really talented folks. I teach part-time in addition to running my company. And I see that with so many folks who are starting out in life, is the most talented folks sometimes think, oh, I can't go for that job, or this isn't going to work, or I don't think anyone's going to take a chance on me. And my answer is always go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no to you? I mean, so keep trying.
Dude, seriously,
apply to the next place.
It's risk aversion that
Mhm.
costs so many people so much money, is they just don't, or confrontation aversion, being afraid of what a client might say or do if they're your client, afraid of being sued if you own your own company, just fear in general of just taking the reins. And it's funny because those folks, if the Dunning-Kruger thing is true and they have the experience, then yeah, they could do quite well. But you also have to be a salesperson. This is the other piece of the puzzle. A lot of folks they're like, don't make me do sales. Just put me behind the desk, give me the job. I'll do the job. It's fine. Don't make me sell.
Yeah.
So we got to wear multiple hats. So, all right, grow up, mom and grandma. What did your mom do?
So my mother and grandmother actually were entrepreneurs as well. And I
There we
saw
go.
then that it's
Okay.
hard work. So I think the more you mention that, I think one of the things that people often, that I encounter when I hire people or teach people marketing, is they think that it's easy. They think, oh, you're just playing on your phone all day. That's what digital marketing is. And I saw how hard they worked. So what they did is they had a relocation service for people who were executives who were coming in. I mean, Boston at the time, this was in the late 70s and throughout the 80s, the 128 techno belt was being built up, and big tech companies, remember Wayne Computer and Digital, you might be too young to remember either one of those, but they were, the tech giants of their day. Executives were coming in, moving here, resettling from wherever they were because they had been hired by these companies. And so what they would do is they owned a couple of rental properties, and also my mother would work with the wives, because in those days all the executives were men, helping them get the kids registered for school, understanding what amenities were available, what was the right neighborhood for them to move into. And at the same time also being landladies. My grandmother was an immigrant. She came here, my grandparents came here with my mother as a little girl and my great grandfather as refugees from the Iron Curtain, from Hungary when the Hungarian Revolution collapsed. And my grandfather was in construction. He died in a construction accident at the age of 60. He was a civil engineer. And my grandparents worked hard with that immigrant work ethic. There was never the expectation that life was going to hand you anything or owed you anything. My grandmother was up working at 7. She was working over the weekends. If you're a landlady or a landlord and the plumbing gets plugged or somebody breaks the gutter or the washing machine and it's their own darn fault, guess who's there at 3 a.m. fixing things? And the number of times I was a little kid sitting in the station wagon, 6, 7, 9, 8 years old after school, watching my mother fixing plumbing. I saw from an early age, which I think that kids whose parents have an office job or something they go to don't see, what work was really like. And I don't want to be like one of these older people saying, kids these days don't know how to work. And I walked uphill to, school in the snow. But I saw how hard you have to work and how you have to show up and be the one who's responsible if you're going to succeed in business. And I saw that before I was old enough to articulate that, because I witnessed it every day. I saw my mother working hard every single day, stepping up every single day. I saw my grandmother with that immigrant work ethic. So when I hit the ground running with my business, I knew it was going to not be a 9 to 5. And you have to accept that if you're going to go somewhere in life, and again, I don't want to be negative, it's totally fine to want a 9 to 5 job, clock off, have something else in life that is your passion. But if you want to build a business, it's not something you ever walk away from. I may not have tenants calling me at 3 a.m. saying my lights are out and I have to drive down there, but you never really leave it behind.
No, it is
Your question.
Impossible. This is why I talk about childhood. And this is why I love this show. Is because our childhoods are the present. Mm-hmm. They feel like the past, so many years ago. And literally because the earth is, because the sun is traveling at over 500,000 miles per hour, circling the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, we're going fast. Okay. So literally your physical location when you were a kid was millions and millions of miles away in space. So yes, I understand that there's distance, but obviously the past is the present. We remember those moments. And if those memories were wiped from the present, they would cease to exist for all, reasonable, applications. So the reason I love talking about childhood is because these moments and these entrenched neural pathways, they are the motivations. They are what causes us to be who we are, to make the decisions that we make, to talk to clients in a certain way, to interact with our employees in a certain way, to speak the language that we speak, to understand the words that we understand. And so, yeah, it is not surprising to me in the least that your mother and your grandmother demonstrated to you the importance of waking up and doing the job and get it done. And so it's unsurprising that you landed where you landed.
And I'm not saying that I'm not saying you can't go where you want to go from wherever you are, right? I've known many successful entrepreneurs whose parents were not entrepreneurs, whose parents think they're crazy, whose whole family, everyone they went to college with, thinks they're crazy.
You're right.
It takes a different mindset, though, and hats off to people who have to break loose from the expectations of their families, because for me it was the opposite. Like, my mother was my biggest fan when I started my company and didn't think I was crazy, even though I was nearly flat broke and eating potato chips for lunch for a very long time, and that worried her. And ultimately she came to work for me part-time. She went through her own health issues starting in her 60s, and she actually passed away a year ago this month. And she really, throughout everything, was a huge believer in and a supporter in me and everything I was doing, which I know is not the case for a lot of people who go down the entrepreneurial path. They have to push back against a lot of expectations that are put on them that you're going to do a 9-to-5 and that's a stable life. So I have to be very grateful for the fact that my family was 100% behind me.
Huge. It's huge. My father passed when I was 2, my mom when I was 26. Nothing to be sorry about. Nothing to be sorry about. There's that scene in Star Wars where Obi-Wan looks at Luke as he's about to get on the Millennium Falcon, and he gives him this kind of nod of like, yeah, I'm going to die now. Darth Vader's going to kill me with a lightsaber, but trust me, I'm going to be so much more powerful. And I feel that way. I feel that way about our ancestors and about our ability to transmute suffering into positivity and into a better world. This is the primary function of humanity, as far as I can tell, because no one avoids it. Suffering is inevitable. If you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for a specific brand of suffering. It's the kind of suffering that, as Christina mentioned earlier, is constant. It's Saturday morning, it's Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, even if you never check your email. Even if you're never in front of the computer and you're just at the park and you're with your kids, you're going, okay, revenue is a little low.
Yep.
Okay, this client, I think they're probably going to stay, but it's a little bit on edge. What can we do? It's, I really should step up my Instagram game personally so that I can have better conversations with my clients about Instagram. Yep. It's that, and it's all the time. And so it just looks like you're chilling.
It looks like you're chilling. Listen, I will tell you the best story about my dear late mother that you're going to really appreciate. So October of 2019, she'd been fighting cancer for many years by then, ovarian cancer, and she was really, really sick, and we were in the emergency room. And as anybody who's taking care of someone with any serious or chronic illness knows, emergency room visits become something you do instead of going to the Starbucks. And I was organizing a conference for Thoughtlight at the time. And we were waiting, because you're always waiting forever in an emergency room to see the doctor, because they're always overwhelmed. And God love emergency room folks. They are the world's heroes. My mother turned to me and said, "You better send out the email to promote the conference this afternoon, because if I die, it would look really tasteless to do it the day after."
Oh, I love that.
And I'm like, "You're right."
I love everything about that.
And she's like, "You still need to get butts in those seats, so send it now so it doesn't look bad if I die."
Dude, you want to talk about selfless behavior.
She was a goddess. Like, she was an entrepreneur till the day she died. She really was. That's right. She lived and breathed it. And again, people don't get it, that it's not about the money. It's not about being able to go surfing in the middle of the day. It's about having a mission where you believe things should be done a certain way, and you're 100% committed to that. You don't want to lose sight of what matters. I was in the emergency room with my mother. I wasn't sitting in my office. You want to take care of your family. You want to be with them there. And the people you need to be with will be on that journey with you, because they know that's who you are. And either that's who they are, as it was in the case with my mother, or they understand that that's who you are.
I love it. I love everything about it. My surfing is longboarding. I bought an $800 X-Way Flex longboard. This thing flies. It is dangerous.
Yeah.
And when you go up and down curbs, it's desert surfing is what it is. It's desert surfing. And I do that to get outside, to get some fresh air, to think. I have solved more problems on a longboard that, you know what I mean? There's something about getting my adrenaline up that helps me make better decisions. There's something about just the catharsis of like getting in that. I'll put it this way. Richard Branson goes on hot air balloons and he like flies around the world. He goes in incredibly fast cars. He does all this crazy stuff. And you would think, Why? You're rich. You never have to work again. You just sell one of your companies. You do whatever you want. This dude has lives in his hands, many families, many paychecks.
Yeah.
And I am starting to understand that behavior of, to each their own. Everyone's different. But his particular brand, I understand that you have to put yourself in this mental state where you're just indestructible. Like anyone can come to you and they can just give me your worst, give me your worst day, give me the worst travesty, the worst whatever. And you have to behave in the calm, rational, you got to make your best chess move. Maybe you don't make a chess move in a day, maybe an entire day you don't make a chess move. But then you have to make 4 moves back to back to back the next day. And you better make those right moves. You don't want to put your queen in the crosshairs,
Yep. You have to, and it becomes its own source of resilience too. It's not like, oh, I'm making sacrifices for my mission. It's more like the mission is what sustains you too.
Yep. I want the most autonomy possible for my employees, because when I was younger, I was teaching, and my brother was working from home, and I was so jealous. It was like, dude, you've got it made, this work from home thing. And this was early in the work from home kind of vibe. And he just had autonomy, and his company trusted him. And I was like, dude, I want that badly. And so that's what I ended up giving. So that's one of my biggest missions, is just autonomy for the folks that work at Send It Rising. It's a big, big deal. That they get to be adults and make adult decisions. And that, I believe, ends with happy clients.
And that also helps you attract the right folks, because people who care about marketing or whatever it is you do, you could be selling longboards, you could be a hair salon, you could do anything, but people who care about what you do want that autonomy. The people who don't want autonomy are the people who just want a paycheck. So giving folks autonomy with the right support is going to attract the people who actually see your mission in life, whatever that is, longboards, knitting shop, whatever, as something that resonates with them too.
Yeah, I love it. So we've gone over, because it's a great interview. It's 11:07, so we're going to wrap things up. As far as I'm concerned, we made it. I mean, we kind of got into your childhood a bit. We could probably pick up like junior high-ish, that sort of vibe, for next time. I want to give you a chance to pitch. Here, I want just selfish capitalist. What do you do? Why should they hire you? How can they contact you?
Okay, so Thoughtlight, THOUGHTLIGHT.net. We make technology friendly. Are you wrestling with integrating different systems that do your digital marketing, not being able to get the most out of your CRM, your email system, struggling with that technology and getting that tech stack to work together? Or do you just need good, honest SEO and content development? We're here for you. Have an ebook offer right now, 10 things you need to know for marketing analytics. That's the run up to my book that's coming out from Flat World on fundamentals of marketing analytics. So reach out to me, thoughtlight.net. My phone number's right there on the website. And you can reach out if you just need to talk about your tech stack problem. And again, visit the website and sign up for our newsletter and get our ebook. You will learn something. And if you don't learn something, you'll get your money back because it's free.
Ladies and gentlemen, marketing as a foreign language, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. We are off this Thursday and Friday. I will be on the beach. Thank you very much. If you are watching us after the fact, as many folks do on YouTube, we appreciate you. Would you hit that like button and leave a comment that helps with the algorithm? If you're listening to us on iTunes, Spotify, or the 10 other podcast platforms that we are on, we love you and appreciate you as well. Thank you so much to my guest today, Christina Inge. We will hopefully see you for the next round of interviews. We'll have to get that scheduled. That is the show for today. We will see you all